So good morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Environmental Social Justice. I would like to first introduce Ms. Joy Langford, our environmental consultant.
Hi, everybody. Good morning.
Good morning. And Joel Vendette, our in-house realtor and also expert on renewable energy.
Good morning.
Good morning. And so Thomas Small is our special guest today. He was the former mayor of Culver City, current CEO of Culver City Forward. So Thomas, thank you so much for joining us today and what you are doing in Culver. Culver's exploding right now. What are you doing in Culver City? Please tell us everything.
Well, thank you so much, Wendy and Joel and Joy, for inviting me here this morning. It's wonderful to get this opportunity to talk like this about my work. It's like I'm constantly doing the work, so getting a chance to talk about it is really a wonderful opportunity. But Culver City, as you guys I'm sure are familiar, is just in an extraordinary position. We actually sort of started to talk about it as a singularity, such a unique event in history where we have Amazon, Apple, Sony, TikTok, Patrick Soon-Shiong, and then soon HBO's new building is almost completed in Culver City. But having those companies really restarting in sort of a new era of technology and entertainment, particularly with streaming, it's really only been enhanced by the COVID crisis. Kind of the value of these services, but having these streaming businesses locating their headquarters in Culver City, which is really just it's a small city, a small town in the midst of the metropolis. We're 40,000 approximately residents, but I think we have upwards of 65,000 people who before COVID were coming to work in Culver City every day. And then on Monday, you might have heard there was a big announcement by Apple that they're going to be bringing 3,000 new jobs to Culver City over the next 3 years, just Apple. So, Amazon will probably match that easily or more on, because they have their studio there. The old Culver Studios is being renovated, is being modernized as Amazon Studios. It's still Culver Studios, but it's the home of Amazon, film and television, Amazon Studios. So we have this. So in a sense, we're having this great success, but then we have to deal with that, and we have to deal with the issues and the problems that creates. And we've seen in Seattle and in San Francisco and Silicon Valley that the way that kind of success can sort of distort the market, so that the housing prices skyrocket. People are having to for people that are not at the top of the food chain who can't afford to live there have to travel miles to get to work every day, and so that creates a big environmental problem, as well as a logistical problem for everyone. So what we're hoping to do in Culver City is to work closely with these companies and with our residents to create a society that's really where the growth is inclusive and where the prosperity is shared, so that everyone can benefit from it and the city can benefit from it. And I think that we've gotten to the point now where companies like Apple and Amazon are starting to understand that it's in their interest to have a balanced community, and to have their people who work there live nearby, so that they don't have the giant.
You guys are really doing a great job on it. So I've followed environmental in Culver City for quite a while. So about 12 years back, before people were putting in charging stations, I was working with the city manager there to put charging stations in under the city hall. And that was a big deal. You guys were one of the only cities to really embrace it, right when it was in its wee stages. And then as far as transportation goes, the metro line is right there. You are building apartments right around the metro stations instead of just the opposite, where people are going to have to walk, far distances to get to the transportation hubs. Your transportation hubs are just like very efficient. Your city planning is like right at the precipice of what needs to happen in many of the major cities here in Southern California, which is attracting like the big companies like you're talking about, Apple and Amazon. So maybe you could talk a little bit about what your city planning process is, and why transportation and energy efficiency and zero emission vehicles are so pertinent to your plan.
Well, we've been working on this for quite a while, and we're at a key inflection point that's going to be happening really over the next few years. But when I first ran for office in 2016, my background is in as a consultant and a writer in architecture and urban planning. So I've been working in that field for many years, working on really the design of cities. Is really the main thrust of my work over the many last years. So when I was elected, I was the urban design candidate, which is kind of unusual as a platform. But I had all of the, we're also, the other thing that we're blessed in Culver City by happenstance is that we have more great architects probably per square inch than maybe anywhere in the world. For some reason over the last 20, 30, even 40 years, architects have gravitated towards having their offices in Culver City. I think before because it was inexpensive. It was on the west side and convenient to every place, but it was inexpensive. But now, there's so much work there, and there's so much construction going on, and there's interest in good architecture. So I think that's drawn architects to Culver City. But that was that. So they were kind of my base. And then the way that translated to the general election was that I was the guy who supposedly could make the traffic better, because everybody cares about traffic. So the tagline that we came up with was "Hate traffic, think small." That went with the main poster that we had. So back in 2017, we started so I sort of had a mandate to work on the design of the city. So we launched a project to try to analyze and find solutions to the traffic problems right around our train station that was going in. And so that was the transit-oriented district visioning plan. So we started that in 2017, and it was hugely popular and successful. It's like more people, I think it was probably the most successful public outreach program we had done up till then, because everyone was interested, everyone was concerned. We had a lot of input, and really we created kind of a vision for that part of the city to do what you were talking about, to try to have housing around the train station and to try to switch to different modes of transportation besides one person and one car, to encourage that. So that sort of started, that set a plan in place. But as we've all experienced, making a plan and implementing it are very different issues, very different processes. So it's taken a while for that to get going. And then, in the last couple of years that I was in office, we finally commissioned our general plan update, which hadn't been done in many years. So that really is setting the foundation, the constitution for the plan of the whole city. And so we're right in the middle of that now. And that original really transportation and mobility work that we did in the TOD visioning process really fed into the general plan. So as the general plan was starting, that was when COVID hit. So COVID kind of stopped everything in a lot of ways and changed everything. But we quickly, pivoted and switched to getting the outdoor space for our restaurants, and opening up the street to more pedestrians, through our main boulevards. And so now, partly because of COVID, we've taken a different approach to those interventions that we imagined back in 2017, and we're implementing a lot of them in a quick build process. which is where we do it all with paint and temporary measures and don't break any concrete. But still, we're able to narrow the boulevards and take lanes for buses and for mobility, for scooters, for bikes, for more room for pedestrians, and opening up more rooms for the restaurants. So now we're at the stage where we're figuring out what's next. And so that's and how to move from that into whatever the next phase it's going to be, however permanent it's going to be. So those are the things we're working on. So as I was coming out of office, I had worked a lot with the major developers in the city and with all the constituents. So that was where I made the decision to work on Culver City Forward and not to run for office again. And so Culver City Forward is a public-private partnership that is intended to work with Apple and Amazon and the big companies to enable the city to do what it needs to do with this huge influx of employees and people that we're going to have, and to really adapt the city to that new environment in partnership with the companies and the city government and the residents. So, obviously launching something like this in the teeth of COVID has been a huge challenge. But we're kind of coming around to it, and the projects that we're working on right now, our first major kind of research and policy project started about 3 or 4 months ago now, and it's called Culver City Bounce Forward, and we're doing it in partnership with the Rand Corporation, and we've done a lot of work with the Rand Corporation, which is based in Santa Monica, one of the premier think tanks really in the world, and certainly one of the 2 or 3 best known in this country. So Rand has been a tremendous asset to us. One of my key partners there, Wendy, and had lunch with him a while back, but Rob Lempert is one of the key guys that I work with. But Rob is a renowned environmental scientist, who was part of the team that won the Nobel Prize for climate change a number of years ago. So it's fantastic working with them to bring those resources, and they're very eager to work on a city that is facing these problems that are so key really around the globe. Because if we can start to solve these problems, to foster growth that's built on technology, on the rise of technology, and on media, on streaming, if we can have that, because that's where it's kind of the gold rush in streaming media. It's like there's so much money pouring into that. It's one of the few sectors that has really gained during the COVID crisis. If we can take that growth and make it include everyone, include our entire community, so that everyone benefits from it, and the community at large, so that the public commons benefits from it, I think that will create a model really for the coming century, because that's the issue of the haves having more and more and the have-nots having less and less that along with climate change is what's really crushing the quality of life for society worldwide. Okay. And so we're facing that in a very interesting way in Culver City. And as we start to come up with solutions for it, I think there are things that can spread everywhere. So it's very exciting. Having public-private partnerships like this is something that has been done for a long time, but not in exactly this situation. And there are several organizations in Silicon Valley that do work like what we're doing, but we're ahead of the curve. It's like those employees still haven't arrived. As we were talking about a little earlier, some of them, we're going to be figuring out how much is going to be telecommuting, how much work is going to be done remotely, and how much is going to be done in the offices. That's to be figured out. But our project, Culver City Bounce Forward, is to study exactly those things. So we're studying, the question, how how can we not just recover from this crisis, but how can we take advantage of this plastic moment where things can change in a way that they couldn't have, 5 years ago, and really be able to launch ourselves towards an even more just and inclusive city and community in the future. So we've been doing.
Tell us a little bit about a day in the life of city planning during COVID. You guys have really switched and maneuvered into a lot of things like even the restaurants, pulling the restaurants out onto the streets right there, the bus lanes that you're speaking of. It's like Culver City actually did not really miss too much of a beat with everything that's been going on, even the Westfield Mall that's right there, as well as really, you seem to really be working with Metro to keep the transportation component going. So what's been a day in the life of trying to do these master plan changes in light of COVID?
Well, I'll tell you, that's such an interesting question. Let me just go to what you made me think of when you first said that, because the problems, it's like really a thinking on your feet in a firestorm. It's kind of what it was like, being in office. It's been a while now, but when COVID first hit, when COVID first hit, I remember chatting, with my friend who runs Akasha, one of the old, kind of the mainstay restaurant in Culver City. And so Alan and I were chatting, and we were worried about, what was this going to do? And we just didn't know at the beginning. So we were thinking, what could we possibly do to try to make this better? So we thought, is there a way? It's like we have all these people that are having trouble getting food, and then we have these restaurants that can't, that don't have any customers. And, how can we bring that together? So we came up with this idea that if we could raise money to pay the restaurants to make the food, and then somehow we could deliver it to the people that need it, we would be sort of solving two problems. We would be helping the restaurants, and we would be helping the people in need who actually need the food. So we developed this program. There were some other people downtown thinking about the same thing. My colleague, Joran Eriksson, who's still on the council now. So we developed a program called Feed Culver in partnership with the Exchange Club, and sort of started by Culver City Forward. And we sort of had we were teamed up with guys when we had first had the idea. And so Feed Culver, we raised money for it, and then we mostly from the corporations, but also from individuals. And so we take the restaurants we worked with over a dozen restaurants throughout Culver City. And so they would each restaurant will make up to 80 meals a night for the Feed Culver program. And then we would deliver them to the soup kitchen at the church on Overland. And so that program immediately took hold and has garnered, upwards of $400,000 in contributions over the past year, and has fed thousands of meals at the soup kitchen. So the soup kitchen ramped up from being 1 day a week to being 7 days a week, and it's still going strong now. And there's the need still there now. So certainly any of your viewers who want to go on the Feed Culver website and make a contribution, it's still needed. It's still hard. And
I will add
it's been an incredibly encouraging process. I'm sorry, Wendy.
I was just gonna say, I'll add the website when I post this in after we wrap, because I post this to other websites that are not live. But one thing that Joy brought up was transportation and working with Metro. And I forgot to announce that you are the chairman of LA Metro Sustainability Council. So my apologies for that.
Oh, no worries. I was going to bring that up at some point, and I'm delighted that Wendy has served on that council with me for the past few years now. And the Metro Sustainability Council is is a council of, I think we have 16 primary members and 16 alternates. And there's a large public that often comes to those meetings. We meet bi-monthly or quarterly rather. And it's a council that advises the Metro staff and the Metro board on issues related to sustainability. And that council has really evolved over the years that Wendy and I have served on it, and is coming into a very influential position with everything that's happening now. So it's been really a pleasure to serve on that council. The chief sustainability officer at Metro, Chris Liban, is sort of our guiding light, and who we work with closely, and it's really become a valuable group to Metro, I believe. Clearly Metro and Culver City have many points of contact, and we're sort of upping our game on how much we work together. One of the projects we're working on that is something I worked on a lot with the city, but these are projects that take years. So it's really, you carry the torch, and then you as long as you can, and make as much project as you can, you hand it off to the next people. But Ballona Creek is kind of the LA River of our part of Los Angeles. And so we have been working on improving Ballona Creek over all these years, and have set up processes and systems to complete the improvement of it. The vision for it, and this was what my main strategic goal when I was on city council. We had a strategic planning retreat when I was first on council, and we've had them periodically over the years on city council. But we determined, that each council member would have one particular project that would be sort of that they would guide, and mine was the improvement, the revitalization of Ballona Creek, kind of parallel to the LA River. So the Culver City Forward is continuing that work now, and the project that we're really talking about a lot, that will come back to the Sustainability Council at LA Metro actually, is the extension of the bike path, because the bike path now ends in Culver City, but the creek itself continues another 2 miles up into the mid-city area of Los Angeles, into Council District 10. And so there are tremendous advantages to extending that bike path. It will connect that whole area of town to Metro by bike and by for pedestrians, for wheelchairs. It'll create a connection for a whole gigantic piece of neighborhood that has no connection to the Metro now. So as an active transportation element, it's key also for Metro, that project is, and so Metro is very interested and has been supportive in talking about this, as has the county and the city, but it's one of those things that takes a long time. But we're reaching we have a new partner in a relatively new advocacy group called Streets for All. That's been a really effective group since they've been working in really gathering public support for these projects, which is ultimately what they need to move forward. It's an expensive project to do that, but we're building the coalition. I'm sorry, Wendy, go ahead. I can. That's okay. Keep talking.
No, and I love that. I mean, I know you've said a few times on the things, take time. You've actually worked very, very quickly with everything that you've accomplished. So I want to give you, kudos for that, because you've actually accelerated things faster than most people I've seen. So you shouldn't say, it's taking a long time. You're actually working at lightning speed, all things considered, with COVID hitting and everything else. And I just wanted to point, we're wrapping up towards the end of it, and I just wanted to make that cemented, that you're working very, very quickly compared to the rest of the world.
Well, thank you. We've had some things come together, but I'm dying to hear what's going through Joel's mind as we talk about all these issues.
I think the question that's been circling through my mind the whole time is, you have one of the biggest challenges about to face you, which is a massive influx of people with money. And housing in Los Angeles is out of control. I'm a realtor, so I get it. Everything is super expensive.
Absolutely.
People are listing their homes. So you're going to have a bunch of people. This is kind of like the perfect storm for what I think is about to hit you guys. And I don't want to sound pessimistic, but you're going to have people with money moving into an area. They're coming from an area that had good infrastructure for public transportation. And now you're going to have an influx of thousands and thousands of cars. And you're going to see a lot of displacement. You're going to see busier roads than before, because everybody knows, in my personal opinion, the LA metro system makes no sense, because I've always viewed LA as small cities making up one big one. And so it's great that there's a gold line that goes from Santa Monica to downtown. However, if you work 5 blocks away from the gold line, you're not taking it, because you just can't. I mean, I remember I used to live in the Valley, and I would think about taking the red line. I can drive faster than I could to get to the red line, circle around for 45 minutes to an hour to try to find parking, then sit on it for another hour to get downtown. So you're going to have this whole influx of people who are used to being able to walk to a metro station or walk to a subway stop and get where they need to be within 20 to 30 minutes. Plus, they're going to have the money to buy things up. You're about to face the perfect storm, and it's going to. I mean, I don't mean to sound rude, but it's going to be very challenging for you guys to figure this out. Sorry.
And Joel, you hit it right on the head, and that is the most interesting and most challenging analysis that you could, and it's exactly what we think about on a daily basis. And there's so much wrapped up in, there are so many solutions that we need to that nexus of problems. Certainly you talk about you address the first and last mile issue, of getting to and from the train station, and micromobility, which is so important that we're working hard on. We've been negotiating with what we've been calling kind of the circulator, which would be sort of, it's a combination of a shuttle service and on-demand micro transit that can be run by the city. We've been working with the scooter revolution, where Culver City Forward actually has a project that involves having a fleet of electric bikes that would increase our micro-mobility within the city for people to get to their offices. But so we've been developing a comprehensive plan in regard to transit that would involve, is your point that the metro is great, but it only serves a relatively small section of the market. It goes to Santa Monica in Culver City, and it goes downtown. So north and south, folks still have to use a car to get to their work. So we're talking about, so it's kind of the vision for Culver City would be to have peripheral parking, to try to use the parking that's already there and share that parking, to have people be able to park on the periphery or near park on the periphery of the city, and then use micro transit within the city to get around, because it's exactly the problem is that the streets get all clogged up with both with cut through traffic and with all of those thousands of people that will be coming. So we need to find a way, and European cities have done this obviously much better than we have, but to get those people out of the cars and within Culver City be able to.
Yeah, I remember years ago. I remember years ago when they were talking about widening the 405, which was, don't even get me started on that. They did the study, and it was only 1 out of 10 people would be willing to give up their cars to use public transportation. So how are you going to get people to change their mentality and understand that public transportation? It's a very LA centric thing where people do not want to use it. They just don't.
See this.
I'm from the East Coast, where you did that because it was also more convenient, because you had a metro stop every few blocks. So there's kind of the convenience factor. So and I'm not trying to push back on it, maybe a little bit. So to tell people you have to go from your house to your car to a bus to another shuttle bus to the metro, back to another bus to a shuttle just to get to the office after walking a few blocks, that's going to be a huge obstacle to overcome.
Absolutely. And it all has to be, the key is that all has to really work. It has to be really convenient. If you lived on the East Coast and other cities, you use the transit because it's better, and so it has to be better. It has to be easier than using your car. And that's,
which is the funny part.
Yeah, that's the environment that we need to create.
Yeah.
And it has to go hand in hand with housing. I think we're really lucky. Our current mayor, Alex Fish, is really an incredibly knowledgeable about these issues and a visionary in regard to this. So he's, working with him is a joy. But the challenges are severe, and so much of this is all happening at the same time. So it is definitely overwhelming. Having to deal with the public safety issues at the same time as we're doing all of this, and Joel, as you know, that the housing the housing issues are just incredibly complex. But I have a let me just describe another couple of projects that relate to this that we're very excited that we're working on in Culver City Forward. We have a grant application in with the National Science Foundation that we're hoping that will be awarded in September, where we've also partnered again with my team at the Rand Corporation that that has had many grants and it has a great track record with the National Science Foundation. But the National Science Foundation is interested in Culver City and interested in cities. This is a particular program within the NSF on cities. Because of the way that we're the crucible for exactly those issues that you talked about. So from a sort of a pure science point of view, what they're interested in is, what is that tipping point behaviorally? What is it that persuades people to get out of their one person, one car and actually use the transit? So we're going to be developing, further developing and refining this system within Culver City that will enable people to get around the city as incredibly. It's got to be very easy. To hop on, hop off, on demand, go from bike to scooter, and those things don't work for people. For some people, there are people who can't use many people who can't use bikes and scooters. So there's got to be another microtransit system that'll work for them to get around the city. So we're going to be developing a plan it's a $1.5 million grant. So we're hoping that will really enable us to really drill down on the mobility element within our general plan and create an implementable, down to the detail of exactly what the streets, how we need to improve the streets and our system to make it work for everyone. So that's that. So that the National Science Foundation project is one thing that's related to that. Then in terms of both housing and mobility, we're working on something that was sort of inspired by the International Building Exhibition that they do in Europe. That's usually about a 10-year project that's in each city. But our project is called Imagine Culver City. And we'll be working, we have a few wonderful sort of museum research type institutions in Culver City. We have the Venda Museum, we have the UCLA Ideas Lab, and then we also have the Design Center at Helms Bakery. That's a great exhibition space. But so we're going to have maybe 10, maybe 15 sort of entries in what we're calling a design challenge, not exactly a design competition, but each of these will create an exhibit that will communicate a project visually. So it'll be mostly renderings, and they'll go into the museum exhibit, and then they'll also be available online that offers solutions to each of these problems. So, there will probably be a couple that will be on Bionah Creek. There will be some on the oil fields that we know are so key to us, some on downtown, and some on housing typology. The question we're mostly single family neighborhoods. They're already zoned to be more dense with the ADUs that are allowed statewide now. But, my friend Christopher Hawthorne, the chief design officer in the city of LA, they recently had a design challenge to develop, and I think they had some 300 entries to try to design the typology that would have 4 units on, as I'm sure Joel knows, that this controversy throughout the country, that it'll have 4 units on what's been in the past a 1-unit lot, and how that cannot change, and how we cannot change the neighborhood. Can we design it so that it doesn't change the neighborhood character in a way that harms the quality of life? How can we integrate that housing into our more traditional neighborhoods? These are problems that I feel like, at the state level and so on, it's like we're trying to solve them kind of with sledgehammers, and so we're trying to find ways to that have more nuance, that are more easily integrated into the different points of view that we have in the city, because we certainly do have political division in Culver City, as there is everywhere else. That is a challenge in implementing all of these concepts.
Well, I think what you're doing is amazing.
There's a lot of hope to it. A lot of hope to it.
I was going to say we're running into 40 minutes, so I wanted to make sure there were any closing discussions, anything that you wanted to close out with, and we will definitely have to have you back in a couple months if you're available, because there's so much more to discuss going on. Just the leaps and bounds of development that's happening in your city and how you're helping them is amazing. So on that, Joy, if you have a final question, and Joel, and then we can close out.
No, I think we've covered a lot. I think in the next 2 months, or whenever we have Thomas back, there'll be a lot more improvement in Culver City. So there's always something fun and exciting to talk about in Culver City.
Oh yeah.
That it's so fast. Joel? There's going to be a whole nother set of developments in a couple of months. But this has been a huge pleasure. I feel like we're just kind of scratching the surface, but we're scratching the surface of really some of the most important problems facing us as a society. So
definitely. So thank you guys. This has been wonderful. And Thomas, I will be back in touch with you very shortly to schedule your next one, because huge amount of knowledge to be shared here, and development and just everything going on. So thank you for that. And on that, I will say thank you. Have a wonderful day, and we will see you very soon. So thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you for making this so much fun. You guys are great to talk to. Looking forward to the next one.
Thank you
so much.